Hi, thanks for joining me again. Today what I'm going to look at is another one of our very rustly packets. It's a PKR CRK. You probably won't be able to see in there, but this is one of our corkscrew kits. I'm going to just turn the camera off for a second, open the packet up to stop the horrible noise and show you what's in there. And there's various ways of doing this kit. I hope what I'm going to show you today is the really easy and straightforward way of doing it that saves quite a lot of wood. I think it's the easiest way of doing it, but I'll tell you the other ways as well, and then you can make your own mind up. So what comes in the kit is the corkscrew section with thread at this end. This requires 5.5mm pilot hole, and there are two chrome end pieces which you can see there. These are solid brass and chromed, and they're made a specific size. There's no thread in there for a very good reason. The reason is because we think the threaded ones on the market have to be screwed on and they're just really difficult to hold, so we think a little dab of glue and just to push those on is much better. They're nice little things, and the other thing I'm going to be using today, it isn't included in the kit, but they're I was going to say as cheap as chips, but actually I think they're cheaper than chips, is a little 6mm dowel connector, because they fit perfectly on there. Now I would say there are two ways you can go about turning this project kit, and they're best described as the easy way and the hard way. The hard way would be to mark the ends of this, put it on the lathe, turn it between centres, turn a tenon at each end, which is 6mm wide for these little chrome pieces that I've shown you earlier. Sorry, I can't hold that very well. These little chrome pieces, they're quite small but they're quite nice. Turn the tenon on the end, and when I've got it to the shape I want, then put the 5.5mm hole in the centre, ready to accept the corkscrew. Now to do something like that, you will need something like, and here's one I've made, it's a little jig for making sure that you drill in the centre of your project when it's on the lathe. Now this is made of wood because I make things out of wood most of the time, and as you can see the bottom bits there are all dented. This tends not to sit absolutely straight on the banjo, and you only need a slight tilt in that and it goes a little bit offline. On a corkscrew, because the corkscrew part itself is quite long, you may well notice if you haven't got that right in the centre, it could be difficult. That's the difficult way of doing it. Now what I'm actually going to do is show you the easy way to do it, and the easy way of doing it is to take your blank, and before we get anywhere near the lathe we're going to put a 6mm hole in this end, 6mm hole in this end, and a 5.5mm pilot hole just over halfway in the centre before we start. What that means is you'll get a centred, flat, straight hole in your project before you go anywhere near the lathe, and it's a much quicker way, an easier way of making sure you get an accurate product. So 6mm hole in each end. The depth at this point really doesn't matter too much. I'm now doing 5.5mm in the centre here. The depth on this bit is critical. It should be fractionally over halfway. So this is about, I think it's about 24mm, so I'm going to go about 13mm, 14mm. And I've actually got 14mm. So now we've got our blank with the holes drilled, you'll begin to see how this can go together. I'm just going to use these just to give you an illustration of how the parts go together, which will look rather odd, but there you can see basically is our corkscrew kit, and what we need to do now is mount this between centres and turn it on the lathe. That's the beach handle finished of the corkscrew kit. You can of course make it whatever shape that you want. Before I did this video I had a little practice, and here's another one that I've made. This one fits together quite nicely as well, but we'll take this one off and show you how to assemble the parts of the kit. So I've got my 6mm dowel piece here, and what I've actually done, I'll put that to one side, is cut it in half because you don't really need a whole one. And what we're now going to do is just pop a piece into either end, like so, and then we can slot on. And I'd recommend when you do this that you glue them, those ends on there, so hopefully you can see that on there. And we're then going to take a corkscrew section, pop that in the vise, not too tight because you don't want to crush it, just tight enough that we can pop that on the top. And again, I'd recommend a little bit of glue in here as well, and we are literally going to just turn that on the top there. And there we have a finished corkscrew. Hopefully you can see that's nice and straight and level in there, and that's just a different design there. The other thing that I'm going to mention is that as well as the corkscrew kit, we do sell these little chrome ends separately in packs of 4. They're really useful if you want to have some products that match up together, or indeed we do actually do what we call a barkeeper's set, which is a corkscrew, a bottle opener and a bottle stopper, all with these ends ready so you can make a matching set. But they're really very easy to fit, and they just add quite a nice little finishing touch on there. So as always, I hope that's been useful. If you have any questions, please ask. Please follow us on Facebook. Until the next time, bye bye, take care.